We're back at New England Naval Timbers, and we've already purchased some of the oak that's needed for the building of Orca. Now, we're looking for the most important piece in the whole boat today, and that would be the keel. It's got to be 8 inches by 10 inches, maybe 30 feet long if there's checking on the ends of it at all. And it's really a rare piece of material. You don't just go get this stuff anywhere. These flitches are so big that we even need the skidder to get some of them out of the way so we can look at this one timber right here. It's a flitch, and it's sawn right down the middle of the tree, basically. That's what we're looking for, because we want an 8 by 10 vertical grain on one side of the heart. You know, this particular piece right here is 38 feet long, 10 inches thick, and probably 30 inches wide at the biggest end. So, you know, we really need a timber like this. We might have one. And pretty soon we're going to be back in the shop working on Orca, actually. This would be the first piece that we're actually going to work on, you know, to fashion for the boat itself. But right now we're going to go back to the shop and we're going to keep working on our 23-footer. Well, today what Caleb and I have done was check our whole setup here. We wanted to make sure all the center lines were plumb and the top of the molds level and lined up. We had to center line them. We checked the center line that we had put on the floor, and then we set the stem up like this. I've got this mold braced off now to the overhead because I don't want the mold to move in any direction, especially this way, which it doesn't. So it's nice and stiff because this mold's going to be under quite a bit of pressure actually when I bend the chines into it and different things. So now we've added some bracing right in here to the stem. That's to stop the stem from moving sideways when we put planks on or any kind of force this way. So we've got it all stiffened right up nice. You know, the idea today though was to get the angle on the stem proper so that we can chafe the stem off on both sides to accept the planking. And this is just a batten up here that just helps us get that angle. And I've taken the angle really off the model as well. And what I did was I checked it. The way I've designed the boat, the angle up here is the same angle as here, is the same angle down there. So it's pretty easy to figure out, but I don't need to know the degrees or anything like that. It's not a rabbited stem because that take quite a bit of work. Trying to rabbit one of these laminated stems is a little tricky, so I didn't really want to get involved with that. So this is what we've got going on. So we've got lines on the stem. Now I'm going to use a batten here stretched around the molds and pushed up against the stem. What I'm out to do is to discover what the bevel needs to be to accept the planking. So I'm going to measure from the back of the batten 90 degrees to that line right there. Now I've put 2 lines on here 1/4 of an inch from the center line because I want the very face of the stem to be 1/2 inch wide. So I'm going to measure from this one line. I've got 1 3/16 inches. So I'm just going to move my rule right back here, put it on 1 3/16 inches and see where it comes on the stem. And basically all I did was take my rule actually and put a little tiny dent there because I don't have enough hands. Right? And then I'll just take my pencil and put a mark on it, like so. And then I just take a sliding square and make a line right on there. So I've got a line here and I've got a line over here. I'm going to plane it off in between the two with an electric plane. You know, I mean, a rabbited stem like this, it's got so many glue lines and so many angles to the grain that if you tried to make this rabbited, you'd have quite a hard time. And the other thing is it's just not called for because I'm going to put a stem cap over the ends of the planks afterwards. I wanted to have a little space in the middle right here so that when I fasten the stem cap down, I can get right into the ends of the oak right here. I don't want the planks to come right up to each other. So that's the program right there. And now I get to pick up an electric plane and bevel it from this line to the line that I put on the side. It's nice and solid, man. So here we go with our little Ryobi electric planer. Now you've seen this planer before in other videos. You know, it's a fantastic little tool. I've explained how I adjust it and all those kinds of things. And you'll notice when I'm planing this thing that planer's not struggling at all, and nor am I struggling at all. I'm kind of in a nice position, you know, and I'm really only trying to take care of the area where I'm going to put the first plank. But it has to extend out both sides of it. So when I want to keep planing from there up or from there down, I won't be fouled up with the plank in my way. So I'm trying to accomplish enough area to put one plank on there and have it fit just nicely against that thing. You know, and you don't really get a look at that bevel until you've knocked it off and stretch your plank around it, or you batten around it again and see how it actually bears on there. You know, you can't just trust the two lines and say that's it, and then stretch the batten around. It doesn't lay there. So, you know, you got to check it out afterwards, but you can see the laminate lines appear as I plane along there. And you can also see the line that I'm trying to get to. You know, so I've got the planer digging in pretty good. I'm taking quite a bit of material off there. And I kind of have to, especially at the ends, because I have to taper it out at the ends in order to accomplish the area that I want to accomplish, actually. As I get closer to the line, I have to be really careful because I don't want to plane the line away. Once you do that, you don't know where you are. So be very careful, come up to the lines really carefully, then dial your plane back so it's hardly cutting so you can just do a really nice job. You know, I'm going to push this batten up against the stem and see how it bears. It's pretty good. It's got a little tiny bit of space back here, but I'm not up to the line right here where it belongs. So I'm going to touch that up and it'll bear down there really nice. I'm using my aluminum number 5 here, and I've got it sharpened up pretty good because this is tricky stuff for plane. It's got opposing grains and glue lines all over the place, so, you know, it's a little tricky, but if it's sharp enough, you can get away with it. And I just need to plane a little bit off the bow end of it right there so the bearing will come out just right. Let's try that, Caleb. Yeah. Pretty much took care of that. Yeah, that's good. No, I'm checking the bearing right there where I had it marked. That's pretty nice right there. So I'm going to check it out up top a little bit more just by moving the batten up on the stations a little bit. And that bears very nice right there too. I'm going to go up some more. Try that out. Very nice, the whole length. So I can apply a plank between here and here, and it'll bear right up there really nicely. Now I'm going to check my bearing right here to see how flat it is, because it's a little bit tricky to get it perfectly flat with a number 5. It's got a little bit of a rocker in it right there. I'm going to use the rabbet plane to take some material right out of the middle. I'm going to move it up some too and check it all the way up. This is not what a rabbet plane is really for. A rabbet plane is for planing a rabbet and pushing the plane straight on. I'm moving the plane actually sideways, so I don't get the blade anywhere near the lines on either side. And I can take the middle right out of there just as nice as pie. Close. Well, that came out pretty nice right there with a very minimal amount of effort. You can see the laminate lines, how nice and tight they are. That'll never fail. Only 3/16 laminates, and there's quite a few of them, so pretty beefy stem actually. We've beveled off the other side of the stem, and now we're going to put our first plank right up in position and clamp it right there. I know exactly where I want to put it, or very close, because I want to trim that knot that you see off the very bow end of it right there. So I've planned this out, and I've got marks that coordinate the next plank up with that plank and all those kinds of things. So, all right, that's good. Wait, hang on. Just like that. Okay. That's all right, just like that. Okay, now I'm going to clamp that, and it's still only temporary. Okay, good. Once I get that plank exactly where I want it, we're just going to clamp it down on both ends. Now I have to position the screws on each end. I can't get them too close to the rabbet line up forward because I just don't want them to be right at the end of the plank. So I'm being very careful how I place these screws. See what would have happened? I got that one way up forward too far, you know? This one wants to be back here. This one looks all right here. Two more. This one wants to be back here. All right. Now I'm just going to drill one hole to coordinate it exactly the same way. Then I'm going to spring the plank back and spread polysulfide where it bears down. I use polysulfide for bedding all the time because I just think it spreads out really easy. I don't have to take a tooth trowel with it. You know, it spreads easy right out of the gun. I put 4 or 5 beads on there, and the pressure of the clamps and the screws just spread it right out perfectly. It comes squeezing out both ends. Then I'm going to sink that first screw in the first hole that I drilled, and that'll just coordinate the position up forward. Now we're going back to the transom, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to spring the plank out, apply the polysulfide, and then clamp it right back into position. You know, I just want to make sure that everything I do is the simplest way to go about it, and this is pretty much it right here. We're using number 12 by 2-inch silicone bronze screws. Now, I've put a lot of boats together in my life and used galvanized fasteners, mostly on skiffs and dories and different things like that. But these are the preferred fasteners because they outlast everything else. And they don't bleed rust down the sides of the boat. This is kind of a nice boat. I wouldn't want to use galvanized. This is the way to go right here. And slotted screws, like I've taught before, real nice because they're easy to get out. You can clean the slots out and back them right out if any repairs are needed. But, you know, hopefully that'll never happen to this boat. But we just want it to be made out of the best material we can make it out of. Now here we go with the second plank on our V-bottom. This would be the starboard side plank, actually the first one on the starboard side. Look at it. It's 10 inches wide. Right now it's 25 feet long. I can get material like this. It's not available to everybody, but I've got some pretty good friends in the milling industry, so, you know, here they are. This is the shortest plank on the boat, actually. You know, the planks get longer than this afterwards, and I've had to pick them out very carefully so that I could cut all the damaged ends off or anything like that. This is quality material right here. It's gonna come to me. Right there, hang on. All right, it's going to go back to you about 3/4 of an inch. I can deal with that, just like that. Yeah, I'm good with that, just like that. I've got a couple lines on the plank, and I just want to make sure both sides, the planks are exactly the same length, because if they're not, the boat's not going to be the same shape on both sides. Okay. Now, we're going to figure out our position for the fastenings, and we're going to get it fastened down pretty quickly here. First, we're going to spring it out, spread some polysulfide behind it, and screw it right down. Now we're going to be as careful as we can be on this side, just like the other side, about our screw positionings, because we want to get them just right. It's worth the time and care to do something like this exactly right. You have to be pleased with it, and it has to look nice and neat when you're done, not just scattered all over the place. So, you know, we're taking our time. Yeah, right, like that. Finishing up our second plank is pretty satisfying because we're getting it done now, and you know, we're going to fasten this thing right down. We're using the bronze screws right here, and I've got this block of beeswax right here. My father used this block of beeswax, built an American Eagle way back in 1963, and I've been using it ever since. People use all kinds of stuff, and I've used some polysulfide, you know, and some slick seam and different things on the screws, but this beeswax just brings back memories, and it works as good as anything. Yeah. Hold on to that piece for me, Caleb, when it gets down closer. Once I've got that second plank fastened right down, I'm just going to take my handsaw and cut the forward end of it off. Now I'm cutting it from the stem side, because if I tried to cut it from the other side, I wouldn't know exactly where I was. I'd have to keep looking over, and you tend to drift. So what happens is you'll cut into the stem. I don't want to do that, so it's very easy from this side, and I'll get it cut almost all the way down. Then it's kind of like almost like felling a tree. You know, I'm going to cut it from the other end a little bit so I don't allow it to chip. And then I just got to turn out a bunch of frames, hang the frames down, chafe some angle off on this, you know, and start putting the bottom on the sole on it. I get the sole all the way, that'll go easy. And then once the sole is on, then we're going to put a interior keel going right down the center line, and start planking the bottom in 2 layers, Ashcroft style. They'll be on a little bit of an angle like that, going that way. Well, there's 2 planks on the boat, the first 2 planks on, and I had said before many times that this edge of this plank is perfectly straight. That's the way I built the model, with the first plank on perfectly straight. That's what I wanted to do. It makes the chine logs go in very easy. So we get a plank on both sides. The next thing for us to do is to put the chine logs inside this plank. So we can just slide them in there and make them fit up against the stem, and then just bend them around. We'll have to bend them way inboard back aft to get them in place, but that's just another thing we'll show you. And once that's done, we're going to start dropping all the frames vertical. They'll attach to the chine and attach to the side plank and just hang right down. Once that's accomplished, we're going to start putting the sole on. Now the sole goes from chine log to chine log straight across, not to be confused with the bottom. The bottom's going to be on an angle like this. It's got a V bottom and a flat sole.